The CNBC app. Global market news in one place. Customizable sections and personalized alerts. Stocks tracking, interactive charts and market insights all in your hands. Stay connected. Stay informed. Download the CNBC app today.
Welcome to Squawk Box Europe. I'm Karen Cho with Ben Boulos. These are your headlines. Big tech moves during the Wednesday session on Wall Street. Alphabet sinks after DeepMind's CEO Demis Hassibis steps down, while SpaceX loses altitude after earnings, with investors now bracing for the first expiration of its insider lockups today. Commerzbank posts a near 100% jump in quarterly net profit, topping expectations as the lender faces a potential takeover by Italy's Unicredit. We'll hear from Commerzbank CEO Bettina Orlopp shortly.
Siemens ups its outlook after a record third quarter, with orders climbing 14%, driven by infrastructure and data center demand. CEO Roland Busch talks up the strong performance of all units across the conglomerate.
We have a record industrial business profit of 3.5 billion, and cash flow came strong with 4.1 billion. So we fired on all cylinders, all metrics.
Iran and Oman inch closer to a deal to reopen the Strait of Hormuz, with the pact reportedly giving Tehran control over ships entering the critical waterway.
Net profit at Commerzbank virtually doubled in the second quarter, coming in at nearly 900 million euros and ahead of analyst expectations. In a presentation to shareholders, the lender said there is only a limited take-up of Unicredit's offer by independent investors, saying it is open to finding a solution with the Italian bank and will work in the best interests of all of its shareholders. Bettina Orlopp joins us now, the CEO of Commerzbank. Bettina, thank you so much for joining us. Before we get into the latest around Unicredit, let me ask you about the results, because you had another record number on the net result, you had improvement on the cost-income ratio, and also the ROT improving. So a fairly standout quarter.
Well, it has been a tremendous half year, I have to say. It's as you said, it's a record net income result of 1.8 billion euros for the first half of the year. That is the best in history, and it is driven by very strong revenues. They are up 7%, specifically driven by net commission income this quarter, also up 8%, and coupled with a very good cost discipline, and then leading to a competitive 53% cost income ratio. And overall, it gives us the comfort to confirm our guidance, which we have just increased last quarter. And so overall, we are very optimistic, and that's despite all turbulent times.
Bettina, there is no doubt your strategy has been working, which makes this even more fascinating that Andrea Orcel over to Unicredit now, which has almost 50% stake in the company, wants its own strategy adopted, and with a timeline by January. Will you adopt the strategy, and how different is it to your own strategy?
But first of all, one need to understand how company law is in Germany, and it is that we are as supervisory board, but also as management board, we are committed to the interests of our stakeholders and of our institutions, and we can't basically follow direction of a single shareholder. So we always need to evaluate and do what's best for our company, and that's what we are committed to do, and we do that pretty successfully, as you can see from the numbers, and that's also what we intend to do in the upcoming quarters. But it's also very clear that now I think the important thing is dialogue, so that we exchange views, that we see how we can jointly create value, and then we take that step by step.
There's no doubt Andrea Orcel has also had success over at Unicredit, a lot of low-hanging fruit that he worked on when he joined the business. When you look at some of the ideas that have been presented to date, are there some good ideas there that would bring value to shareholders?
Well, there are not a lot of details available, and what we see, it's very much based on outside assumption, which is very clear given the situation. I think now it's really important to sit together and see and compare notes. I think what is clear that they under-evaluate some of the strengths of our business model, specifically when it comes to the international network, because that is super important, specifically for our German corporates, and they are specifically for our German Mittelstand clients. And that is something we need to do in the upcoming weeks and discuss that.
Bettina, what you're fleshing out is a ton of conversations here. And of course, the regulator too has also cleared that hurdle with BaFin. We've heard from the German regulator telling the Italian bank that the application for controlling stake can roll forward. Is it business as usual? Because it feels like it cannot possibly be with so many of these discussions taking place in an uncertain future.
I think that has been the secret already over the past quarters, and specifically also in the last quarter, that we really try to focus our organization, our team, to 99% on the value proposition, on the operations of the bank, so that we are out there for our clients, and we do that very successfully, as you can see from the results. And then there's a small team which takes care when it comes to dealing with the situation with Unicredit. And that is something which is important, because we need, as an institution, we need focus, and we need focus on the development of our initiatives and the implementation of our initiatives, but also being out there for the clients. Because otherwise, if I would show up here and have not so good results, investors would not be very happy. So it's really important that we have full focus on the institution itself.
Bettina, it's Ben joining the conversation here. As Karen mentioned, some key hurdles, regulatory hurdles have been cleared. But do you have any sort of sense of the timeline, the roadmap for when this will all be completed and progress?
Well, I mean, we only also know what the regulatory requirements are, and it's very clear that if BaFin has cleared and said the completeness of the offer documents, then ECB has up to 60 days, working days, to decide on it. They can, I think, extend this period by a certain amount of days. But that's not the only approvals which are necessary. There are also approvals necessary from the EU and from some other countries where we are active in. So I think it's fair to say that one should expect that approvals are there in either the fourth quarter or latest beginning of next year.
There has been some criticism from some quarters about this takeover. One of the German unions, key bank labour union, has described it as the potential for chaos is growing. What do you say to them, and what do you say to your staff who are really concerned about what the future may hold for them and for the organisation?
I mean, what I'm saying to the staff is that the most important thing is that we focus on the institution and our clients, because that is the best thing we can do, because we act out of a position of strength, because we are the strongest Commerzbank we ever have been in the history of 150, 60 years. And that is something we should defend. That is my message number one. Message number two is, and that has not changed over the past quarters, is that I believe that situations like that can be only solved friendly, because if you do that in a hostile way, you definitely destroy value. And I think that is not in the interest of Unicredit. It's not in the interest of Commerzbank. So therefore, a joint approach is the way forward. And that also includes that we have a strong alignment with the Workers' Council, with the union, but also with other larger shareholders, e.g. The government.
And then in terms of the latest results, they are outstanding, a record result for the first half of the year. With all of this going on in the background, what is your focus as we go into the second half of the year on the business side of things?
Yeah. But first, continue the implementation of our initiatives, which we have described within the Momentum 2030 strategy. So we really need to make further progress, which we have done in the second quarter when it comes to our AI initiatives, but also when it comes to enhancing the product servicing offering for our clients. You see it in the numbers that clients really pick up on the increased and the improved value proposition. Just take private clients and our wealth management initiatives. We have just reported also that our discretionary portfolio management, where we have invested a lot in capabilities, has now increased by 20% up to 25 billion euros. And that is something which yes, shows nice result, and we need to continue this effort. So it's really implementation of Momentum 2030, of the initiatives attached to it, but also then being out there for our clients and stay focused. And that's my first question when I talk to clients. I ask them, is it team focus? Do you have the feeling that they serve you best? And luckily, the answer is yes, and that needs to stay like that also in the upcoming quarters.
Bettina, executive strategy is one thing, but the other is the cycle. And it does feel as though the German economy is working against you, given the impact of the war in the Middle East, the higher energy costs and the brake that is applied to the German economy. We've even seen a downgrade to some of the economic forecasts for 2026. What are you seeing out there as you battle some of these forces?
Actually, for me, it's in the moment, it's a mixed bag because, yes, you have also the Mittelstand still being skeptical. You have the war out there. You have the energy costs. Now you also have the climate situation with the rivers and the water levels low, which is also not great for the economy, as we know. But on the other side, we also see positive signals. We have just improved our outlook for German GDP from 0.6% to 1%, based on the better performance of the last quarters. We also see that there's a pickup in the order data. We see an improvement in the IFO index. We also see from the ECB lending survey that there are more investments. There's more loan demand, which speaks for investments. And we have the reform packages of the German government, which clearly now need to be fully implemented. And there also we need more reforms, but it's a good starting point. So that also can provide some tailwind, but it's also very clear when you look at our numbers, also for the second quarter or for the first half year, that we see our corporates investing, but unfortunately they do not invest in Germany. They rather invest in Europe or even abroad.
Bettina, the framework of the banking system in Germany matters in so many different ways as we talk about the future of Germany, the future of Europe. And this is why the early part of the conversation about a transaction with Unicredit has been so pivotal to many to watch. Consolidation, cross borders, a much larger banking system is something that has been called for as part of the resilience for Europe. But I know you've spoken in the past about the systemic relevance to Germany of your bank. How do you see it today and what needs to be protected, even if ultimately there is consolidation across borders?
I mean, what you can see is that we, first of all, we have been voted bank number one with distance again by German CFOs. So they have a very, very strong market position in corporate clients. And you see it also in the numbers, like 30% of German export runs via our books. So there is something to defend. And we have a lot of German corporates who just not do only business in Germany, as we all know, but they live from exports, and for exports they need a bank at their side, and they need that not only in 5 or 10 countries, they need that basically across the world, and that's the value proposition we deliver, and we have a very, very special value proposition in that. So that's what we have. When it comes to cross-border synergies, we all know that's very difficult to achieve, at least for the time being, as long as we do not have something called a banking union. But clearly, there are synergies, domestic synergies, which can be created, and that will be also what should be focus of the talks in the coming months.
Bettina, we do appreciate you being so frank with us today. Thank you so much for joining us. Bettina Orlopp with us, the CEO of Commerzbank.
Let's check in on the markets. This is how Wall Street finished the Wednesday session. I'm running away with the week, aren't I? This is how the averages finished the Wednesday session. And a bit of a mixed picture, really, if you're looking for a clear story. If you look at the Dow, a strong performance there, closing at a fresh record high. This was its fifth positive session in a row. On the other hand, we saw the S&P 500 and the Nasdaq both closing the day lower, the S&P 500 snapping what had been a 4-day winning streak. And we saw a lot of reaction to the SpaceX results, that first set of quarterly results since the company went public. Alphabet shares elsewhere fell after the company reshuffled its leadership team at Google DeepMind. Demis Hassibis nixed as the company's CEO in favour of a new role as chair and chief scientist, and a number of other leaders leaving the company. This as investors wait for the release of the company's flagship Gemini 3.5 Pro AI model, which was meant to be released in June. Google has also had to contend with the recruitment efforts of its rivals, Anthropic and OpenAI, both scooping up star members of its staff in recent months. And you can find out more on that story, as well as the destination of the company's former chief scientist, on our website at cnbc.com. Mentioned SpaceX, its shares fell substantially closer to Earth, down nearly 14% in Wednesday's session, as it became the latest flashpoint for investor concerns over, guess what, spending on AI. In its first earnings report as a public company, the firm said CapEx rose by around 500% to nearly $18.5 billion in the second quarter alone, above analyst expectations. Well, Wednesday's share price move leaves it down by more than half from its high, and that decline could continue today as the company's first share lockup expires. Not only are a swathe of employees and early investors expected to cash out, but today's release will roughly triple the company's current public float. Nvidia shares climbed more than 3% Wednesday on comments by Elon Musk the evening before that SpaceX will build its AI infrastructure, quote, exclusively on Nvidia. Those remarks put added pressure on AMD, which closed down 7% despite having reported record quarterly sales. Let's have a look, quick check-in on the Asian markets, and a lot of red to be found on the equity markets in Asia in the current session. Kospi down 4.75%. It has been volatile, that market, hasn't it? We've seen the fluctuations in the fortunes of the chip makers really driving the market at points higher, and today low enough at one point to trigger the circuit breaker when it had fallen more than 5%, automatic halt to trading. To stop it going into free fall, but it's still down more than 4.7%. Elsewhere, negative sentiment really seeming to prevail, with the exception on this wall of the Shanghai Composite. What have we got in store ahead? Well, this is what European futures are indicating, a fairly positive start to the Thursday session, all of the benchmarks being called higher. That's the European futures. Here's what the US futures are suggesting. And again, a bit of a mixed picture, but lots for investors to digest today. Another busy day of earnings. Warner Brothers Discovery on deck before the bell. Also, after the bell, we've got Airbnb and Lyft are due to report. And then some weekly jobless claims data is out on Thursday morning. Of course, that comes ahead of the July non-farm payrolls report due on Friday morning.
Coming up on the show, SpaceX shares fall down to earth as the company becomes the latest flashpoint for worries over AI spending. Plus, Alphabet shares skid as Google reshuffles its DeepMind leadership team. We'll bring you the details. And we'll hear from the CFO of Swiss Re as net profit rises by nearly 10% in the first half. Don't miss that conversation at 8:15 London time.
Executive Decisions is the new podcast from CNBC, where I ask powerful leaders about their decisions that changed everything. I'm Steve Sedgwick. Here's the CEO of the London Stock Exchange Group, Julia Hoggett.
There is no justification whatsoever for not doing the right thing, even if the right thing is hard to do. Which also means that if the context changes or the information changes, it is absolutely fine to also change your mind.
That's Executive Decisions with me, Steve Sedgwick. Get it wherever you're listening to this.
Welcome back. More earnings. Zurich Insurance has reported all-time high operating profits for the first half of the year, coming in at $4.8 billion. Carolyn joins us now, and she's also got with her the CEO. Carolyn, over to you.
Ben, thank you so much for this. Yes, better than expected numbers from Zurich Insurance this morning for the first half, beating expectations, lifting guidance for Alive. The stock is up 1.4% pre-market. I've got with me Mario Greco, the CEO of Zurich Insurance. Mario, always great to speak with you. Talk me through the highlights of what has been clearly a very strong first half.
We are seeing markets which offer opportunities, but also huge risks. So I think we navigated through that. We shrunk the property and casualty part of the market, which is very soft, and we expanded ourselves in the property and casualty part of the market, which is more interesting, more attractive in the margins. Life, extraordinary performance, we counted on that, and we lifted the guidance for the rest of the year because we see more coming in the second half of the year. And farmers, very solid performance in a competitive market. We think that farmers is beating competitors, and we're very proud of seeing that.
Now, what I see in the numbers here is very strong growth when it comes to construction. And we know data centers, AI, the whole value chain falls under that. Yeah. Where are you seeing that growth? And most importantly, where do you see the biggest concentration? Is it in the U.S.?
It was in the U.S. We started doing the data center technology developments in the U.S. 3 years ago. We continued. Now we see more and more expansion of that into Europe, into the Middle East, into Asia. This is the core business for Zurich. This is where Zurich had experience over so many years in the past. We have hundreds of people specialized on construction, infrastructures development, and this is incredibly good work for us.
So the fact that this business is diversifying into other regions of the world, that's positive, right? Because what the market is concerned about is too much concentration when it comes to one particular market. And the question is how the insurance industry is dealing with that risk of over-concentration. How are you spreading the risk here?
First of all, we run this not just a construction of pure risk. We offer a complete set of services. We call it the vertical. So we insure everything that it's about constructing one of these big projects and delivering it, which already means that we spread the risk because it is also about workers' comp, it's about motor, it's about marine, to ship all the furnitures there. It's energy, which is so important. So how to provide the energy solution to the place. And again, we have specialized people who have been working on similar projects for decades. Then the regional expansion is very important because the risks also are about the weather, are about the local geographical exposure to a weather phenomenon. And the more we spread it around the world, the better it is, as it's always with the insurance business.
Securitization has come up in terms of the insurance sector spreading the risk here. Is that a profitable avenue?
It's more than profitable. I would say it's needed now because of course we need reinsurers. So we need capital protection to take all these exposures ourselves. And we're stretching the limits of the reinsurers by growing the business so fast. With the concentration, especially in the U.S., the insurance got really stretched. Mm-hmm. So securitization, alternative forms of capital, alternative protection, it is so important for us to continue doing the business.
Mario, you mentioned the weather before. I got to ask you about the very, very unfortunate events unfolding in Europe over the last couple of weeks, wildfires. How much, to what extent are you impacted by that? And how is the insurance industry dealing with that? Are certain regions becoming uninsurable? We never say that weather events, weather risks are uninsurable. They're all insurable. The question is the cost, because it becomes more and more expensive. Wildfires, and we have a lot of experience from the US and Australia on wildfires, can be prevented, can be mitigated, but they require a systemic intervention, which often countries, local jurisdiction, governments, they're not ready to do because they don't really visualize, they don't feel the risk yet. But the risk is there. We don't have a real exposure to these events are happening these days in Europe. That's not going to be material for us. But this is something that we have been dealing with, and we know how to cope with, and we know how to prevent and mitigate them. But the trouble is, the protection gap is so huge. How do we highlight this? As an insurer, you have an important job here as well.
Correct. And I think we do that. We continue to talk to organizations, countries, to local jurisdictions to make them aware. We created years ago a unit which we call Resilient Solutions, which goes to customers and support them in creating these prevention and mitigation solutions there. We do everything we can, but yes, there is a gap. Before we have a gap in protection, there is a gap in awareness.
Right.
This is a riskier world than it was years ago, and we should become aware of it and take the actions needed.
Mario, finally, let me ask you, you're mid-cycle when it comes to your current target range. You're ahead of the targets here. Now, very soon you're going to have to formulate new targets. Are you going to be the one seeing through the new cycle?
We will formulate the new targets next year, but before we get there, I want to fully deliver on these targets and possibly continue exceeding on the targets. We will also rethink about our strategy, because we have worked 10 years on a strategy which has paid off extremely well, but it was 10 years old. It is now 10 years old, so we need to develop a new one for the future, and this is work for next year. And yes, I will do that, and I will lead that.
All right, final point here on M&A. Massive M&A just ahead of you in terms of completion the second half of the year. Beasley, of course, $11 billion deal. I guess you're done when it comes to M&A. Is there anything else you want to add to the portfolio?
No. We're done for the year. We did 3 important transactions: a life transaction in Australia, a property and casualty transaction in Ireland, and then Beasley in the UK market. That's enough for this year. Then we need to generate the returns, the synergy, the benefits for the shareholders, and then definitely we'll see for the future what else is needed or accretive for us.